welcome to the 49ers First and 10 podcast. 10 minutes of the most up-to-date 49ers news first thing in the morning. I'm your host, Brianna McDonald. Joining me is team reporter Lindsay Pilares. Training camp is now over and it's game time, faithful. The first preseason game is tomorrow in Nashville against the Tennessee Titans. Lindsay, how are you feeling? Are you ready?
It feels like football is back. I know that the preseason obviously is just so that everyone can ramp up to the regular season, but we are going to have live game action for the 49ers for the first time in 2024, and that's coming up on Saturday, so I'm pretty excited about it, Faithful. I hope you are too.
Before we get into some preseason game talk, how is the team looking in terms of health and injuries heading into the preseason? Are there any key players who are expected to miss this game or even just the preseason slate?
A lot of the injuries that I'll list off for you right now are injuries that we already know about. We heard from head coach Kyle Shanahan in the days leading up to this final travel day. But so don't expect a Christian McCaffrey who's dealing with a calf strain. Don't expect a linebacker Fred Warner who's dealing with a little bit of foot irritation. Really don't expect a ton of starters to be playing in this. Shanahan said that the plan is for as little starters really to get game action right now. It's the very first preseason game. This is not unusual. And right now, the preseason really is a great evaluation tool for the 49ers coaching staff, front office, to get a look at the free agent signings, to get the undrafted rookies some live game action, to see how the quarterback situation is playing out behind Brock Purdy. So again, a really, really big game for everybody that's looking to make that 53-man roster, because you can stand out during this preseason, make a case for yourself, and maybe end up on that 53-man roster at the end of this preseason period.
Now, before we get into preseason game one, have there been any notable roster moves that fans should be aware of?
Yeah, it feels like we've had some pretty consistent roster moves these last few days. The latest is that the 49ers have signed safety Tracy Walker to the third to a one-year deal. In order to make room on the roster, the team has placed defensive lineman Drake Jackson on the reserve pup list. That does mean that Drake will not be playing during the 2024 season. He's still working back from a leg injury. As soon as we know more details about that, we'll fill you in on that.
All right, so now as the team has been transitioning from training camp into the preseason, how have the newest players to the team, like rookies and new acquisitions, adjusted during camp? Who are some players we should keep an eye out for in this week one game?
Well, I think you might not see them in this week one game, but I think a lot of eyes are on that 49ers defensive line that the team invested a lot of resources in through free agency, especially. I'm not sure how much you're going to see a Leonard Floyd out there, but that's a notable addition. We've heard from Nick Sorensen. We've heard from Nick Bosa just talking about how well he fits into this 49ers defensive line. We've heard similar things about a Yetur Gross-Matos, who you may see in this preseason game. He's a guy that can play on the interior part of the defensive line, also on the outside. Then you've got Jordan Elliott, a Malik Collins. They've got time in the league. Again, not exactly sure how much of them that you're going to see, but that's been a really important part of this offseason, is really bolstering that defensive line, getting it back to where the 49ers were in 2019, because that's kind of been the gold standard, I think, for defensive lines. I think another place to look, the 49ers added a lot of cornerback depth throughout this offseason and also through the draft. So keep a lookout for guys like Chase Lucas, Isaac Yadam. You've also got Renardo Green, who was a second-round draft pick. Those are some of the guys that are making cases for themselves to make this 53-man roster. A Rock Yassin. Again, just names that you're going to want to be on the lookout. As for those more experienced players like an Isaac Yadam, I don't expect to see a big workload, but you might see him out there.
Yeah, you mentioned Renardo Green, and that got me thinking, this Saturday is going to be a huge day for the rookies. They must be so excited, getting ready to gear up for their first NFL game. Who are some rookies that we should keep an eye out for? Any draft picks that really shined during training camp?
Yeah, I think Renardo Green is someone that has consistently been getting better over the course of the last 2, 3 weeks. Definitely had, I think, a few more PBUs than he did at the start of camp in this final block, third and fourth block, really. I think another person to look out for is offensive lineman Dominic Pooney. He's gotten a lot of valuable work in at the guard position. Definitely somebody to look out for. He was a third round pick for the 49ers, has definitely been developing very early. So I would say those two guys, Malik Mustafa, a safety, he's had a pick or two during this camp, has just shown up really ready to go and playing really fast, which is a really great thing you see in a rookie because that means they're picking up the playbook, they're feeling confident. So I would say if I was to look out for three rookies, those would be my three.
In the preseason, the score, the stats, they don't necessarily count. However, those live action game reps do. I'm curious, what should we expect from the Titans in this preseason opener?
I think you're going to expect from them exactly what the 49ers are doing as well. This is a time to see what players you have, how they're going to react in those game action reps, to get those rookies their first NFL snaps, to really bring them up to speed, hopefully in time for that week 1 game, depending on what position, if you need them to start contributing immediately. This is a really crucial part of the development process. I think, again, you're going to be seeing those guys that were off-season free agent signings that are making cases for themselves, trying to make plays and say, hey, I belong on this 53-man roster. This is also a time for teams to be testing lineups, whether it's on the offensive line, the defensive line, who you want in your nickel packages. All of that is what teams are very much working out right now early in the preseason. I think universally across the NFL, you're going to see teams really trying to figure out this new kickoff rule. It's absolutely 100% new for everybody. I've been reading up on it these past few days and also watching it in these first few preseason games that we've had. Definitely something to keep an eye on because it's 100% new for everybody. And it's going to be a learning process. I think there's going to be a learning curve. And teams are finding out what works for them and how to strategize this very new thing for all of the teams.
Yeah, learning process is a great term. It's a learning process for the players out on the field. It's a learning process for the fans as we're watching these games. You mentioned the kickoff rule. Are there any new rules that are going to be implemented that fans are going to see for the first time this Saturday?
Yeah, so definitely the kickoff rule. And I think if you really want to read up, study, know what to expect, we've now had some preseason games around the league, but this is really a good callback to the XFL. Very, very similar rules. So I would use that as a reference point. I know I have been, but there's a lot of great tutorials and breakdowns of how to properly do this new NFL kickoff rule. So I've definitely been leading on that. But then you've got other small tweaks. The onside kick rule is also a little bit different. It's now only allowed in the fourth quarter. You've got to announce it, and it's only available for teams that are trailing in that fourth quarter. You're going to see the elimination of the hip drop tackle. That was also one of the new changes coming to 2024. And then another one is the expired game clock can now be reviewed. Just a few of the ones to be on the lookout for. I know some of them are slight changes, and there's obviously some nuance to them, but we're all going to learn together.
This will be fun. Saturday, I'm really looking forward to seeing some football on TV. Faithful, that will do it for today. Tune into the 49ers' first preseason game tomorrow on Saturday at 4 p.m. on KPIX. Subscribe for more preseason updates and turn on the notifications for any breaking news Move the Chains episodes. Thanks for tuning in.